members of the British cabinet walking into an emergency meeting on the crisis with Iran. The Stena Impero still in Iranian custody. The oil tanker seized Friday night, still in an Iranian port. The crew in custody and the ship's British flag replaced by the red, white, and green of Iran.
Do not seek confrontation with Iran. We've taken every available opportunity to reduce misunderstanding whilst standing by our rock-solid commitment to the international rule of law.
The British government faces a conundrum: react too much and risk war with Iran, react too little and lose deterrence, risk more Iranian acts.
If Iran continues on this dangerous path, they must accept the price will be a larger Western military presence in the waters along their coastline.
So far, the British have imposed sanctions. They have not freed the Iranian tanker seized and sitting in Gibraltar, but overall, erring on the side of less response, not more. The seizing of the British flag tanker will have a big impact. Iran has flexed its muscles, shown it can and will hold up shipping in one of the world's most important shipping lanes, shown that it will match the American maximum pressure with maximum pressure of its own. The standoff between Iran and the West is not a hot war, but it's not exactly a cold war either. Owen Alterman, I-24 News.
Well, for more, we will be going to Washington and our correspondent there, Shayna Estulin. But first, let's go to London and our UK correspondent, Jonathan Sacerdoti. And Jonathan, what is the government they're going to do with this major foreign policy crisis just on the eve of replacing its leader?
Indeed, British politics is anything but quiet at the moment. Domestically, there'll be a new prime minister by tomorrow, and yet we will find out exactly whether or not they will stick with the same strategy when it comes to Iran over the coming days after that. For the moment, Jeremy Hunt, who is the Foreign Secretary, though would like to be the Prime Minister, he is speaking quite boldly, but not necessarily saying all that much. What he did say in the House of Commons earlier today was that Britain takes very seriously what Iran has done, utterly contests the Iranian interpretation of what happened when Britain seized the Grace 1, that tanker with Iranian oil off the coast of Gibraltar, and says indeed that the British tanker was in Omani water and that Iran acted completely illegally by maritime law, by international law. So the unique sense of what he's doing is that he's putting together, he says, a European military force in the Persian Gulf in order to protect maritime activity there, making it very clear that this is not part of the US effort to add maximum pressure to Iran. He spelled that out, and indeed the word that he probably used most frequently in that statement in the Commons was de-escalation. So a bit of a double-edged message sent to Iran, taking it very seriously, but very afraid of escalating.
And it is interesting, Shayna, that Jonathan is pointing out the UK trying to differentiate this crisis with Iran from the Trump administration's confrontation with it over a number of issues, including the Iran nuclear agreement. How is the U.S. reacting to this current situation in the Persian Gulf?
Well, you have seen the U.S., the Trump administration, trying to push for this global coalition to patrol the Strait of Hormuz. As Jonathan pointed out, it is the most important waterway when we're talking about global oil because much of the world's oil goes through it. And so the U.S. wants allies to come on board this project to monitor and escort tankers as those tankers make their way through that waterway. And we have reached out to the State Department and other U.S. allies to get official confirmation, but it does appear that U.S. allies are very hesitant to join this coalition because, A, it's dangerous, and also they don't really want to do anything the U.S. is doing when it comes to Iran because essentially they blame the U.S. for getting everyone into this mess by pulling out of the nuclear deal in the first place. But it puts the Brits in a really tricky situation because they just don't have the naval power on their own to protect every single one of their tankers that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. And we saw the consequences of that just last week.